Hello everyone, my name is Maria Oreska and I'm responsible for product development at Infinity. One of our Qlik native extensions is Infinity Forms. Infinity Forms enables you to enter your own manual inputs context to your data directly where the data is in your Qlik Sense application. You can enter some notes and comments, but you can also add deadlines, responsible person, actions to be done, or any kind of human interaction that makes sense according to your use case and your data. To get started with Infinity Forms, naturally you need to have it installed. There already are videos how to install Infinity Forms on the on-prem server, as well as how to deploy it on your Qlik SaaS environment, so I'm not going there in this video. Once you have it up and running, you can find Infinity Forms extensions here on the left side of your screen under the Custom Objects section. And here is the subsection called Infinity Bundle. As you see, it contains 4 different types of front-end extensions. And as you will see in this video, those are multiple ways how you can enter your own comments and notes and decisions to your data. Let me show them to you one by one. So first, Forms Comment Object. It's quite clear Forms Comment Object is here to comment objects on your screen. As with any other Qlik Sense object, you need to drag and drop it on the sheet. So let me do it right now. In the Properties panel, you can find the Form Configuration section. In Infinity Forms on-prem, there is a form instance. That means the data storage where the comment is stored, pre-filled by default, so we don't need to change it. I'll explain how to create your own data storage later in this video. The second section is Select Objects, and it's up to me which objects on the sheet I'll allow for object commenting. The reason is that I don't need my users to discuss something over the filter or some image on the screen, right? I want them to be focused and discuss data and insights. So in our case, it completely makes sense to enable it for stores by region and weekly sales profit. And right now, it's ready to be used. As you see, in the objects where object commenting is allowed, I have this new icon in the Qlik menu. It's called Comment, and when I click on it, it opens this pop-up where I can share my thoughts and insights with my colleagues. But not only that. The main added value of comment objects is in keeping the context in your messages. So if I select West region, here, thanks to Qlik, I can select some specific stores. And when I now want to ask my colleagues something about this, my selections will be captured. Let me show you. By default, it's enabled, but naturally I can turn it off if I want, but it really makes sense to save selections alongside with my comment. So when my colleague now opens the application, he or she comes here and sees that there is a new comment over the object stores by region, and he or she opens this pop-up that can be done from this menu, but also from this button. I read the question, shouldn't we open some new stores in this region? What is she talking about? And the answer is here. This button shows me selections, and this button applies them. On one click, I see the very same context that was on the sheet when my colleague sent his or her question. Now I can do some further analysis here and reply to it. Okay, if Grammarly says so. And this might be a nice case when I don't want to share my additional selections. Just a reply to this question. If you want your users to give a space for general discussion, not linked to any particular visualization on this sheet, it also can be done, because you can comment over this comment object. In the Properties panel, in the Select Object section, I need to allow object commenting for comments object. It's here. And my best practice is to rename it to something like general discussion. Also, all Qlik native titles, subtitles, things like that are available. So I can also add a title here. Let's discuss. It should be first, right? In the object settings, I can change the order just like this. And if I want to highlight this specific chatting thread, I can add some colors to it. That's the first one. Let me come back to this list and explain how Forms General works. Forms General is the editable table. It's based on the very same logic as Qlik table itself. So in data, there will be dimensions and measures, sorting options, add-ons, appearance, but it also contains the section to manage your own manual inputs. Let me make a space for it here. This is a Qlik native table. I can drag and drop Forms General over it and convert. It's Qlik native. Or naturally, you can create a new object on the sheet. It's up to you. When I convert table to Forms General, as you see, my dimensions, my measures, as well as title and other design options are still here. Before I go to the options how to create your own manual inputs, let me explain how they will be connected to the rest of your data model. It's based on nothing else than dimensions. These dimensions are coming from a data model, and by default, all of them are key dimensions. It means they are unique identifiers of a row for manual inputs. In case I have multiple dimensions like here, ID and salesperson, where all are key dimensions, the key that will be used to store the manual inputs is a composite key. So it will be a combination of this ID and salesperson. But there are these cases like when I was married half a year ago, I changed my name. Technically, the very same ID, let's say 99, with my new name will be a new key. If we want to prevent that, we need to use only those dimensions as key dimensions that aren't changing. In this case, it's ID. And the salesperson, the name of the person, can be a non-key dimension. So it still can be used to make selections, but it won't be stored in a data storage as part of the key. As I mentioned, in case of forms commenting, it's also in place here. So in the forms configuration section, when you use Infinity Forms on-prem, there is pre-filled data storage. So you don't need to do anything. You can start using it. Also, in the form configuration section, there is the most important button of this extension, Add Field. It's exactly the button that allows me to create new manual input. I need to fill column name, that's the technical name of the field that will be stored in a data storage. Label, that's the name of the field that will be shown to end user. And type, those are three main options of editable fields. As you see, there are multiple field types available. By default, a new field is text. If you want, you can change the column width, so the default size of the field is larger or smaller according to what you need. And that's it. It's ready to be used. Let me show you some other main field types. So we can create another field. Let's say we are doing some data quality checks, so the data needs to be checked. In that case, I can use checkbox, center it if I want, or more visual element is switch. Since these are information about salespeople, I can actually add suggested bonus. I can use number, so it doesn't allow me to fill any text in there, just number. Or I can use currency option. When it comes to currencies, as you'll see, I have additional options available to define currency symbol, separators, positions, and so on. Once I have suggested bonus, there can be an approval. For approvals, the most often used field type is traffic light. It's a visual element that changes its color upon clicks. Technically, it stores values 1, 2, 3, 0. Also, we can add an input about the performance. In that case, we can use stars. I can select their color, make it aligned with the visual of my application. It's all in the additional options of a specific field type. And let me add one more, and that's nothing else than date picker. So it can be like a review date. As I mentioned, there might be the use case for the data quality checks. So I want people to select a specific date when it was done. Again, if I want to reorder those fields, I can just drag and drop it where it makes sense. As you already saw, there are some other field types options that can cover more advanced use cases. But feel free to explore by yourself. Or may I show you one more? I promise, the last one. It's a select box, a drop down where user can choose one from the predefined options. It's very helpful, especially for categorizations. In our case, it can be a theme. So let me add a new field. It's select box. Yeah, it's here. I can make it a bit wider. And in its additional options, we define the values that will be available. The logic is very intuitive, as you probably know from other tools. So you can define the options separated by semicolon. Since we are in Qlik, it's going to be equal and the text between two single quotes. So it might be a team A, semicolon, team B, semicolon, team XYZ, as an example. As you see, these values can be also coming from a data model because it can be defined by expression. That's also already explained in one of the Tech Tuesday videos. So if you are interested, I recommend to watch it. Okay, team A, B, XYZ are my options. By default, I can select one team, but if I want to change this behavior, I can allow multi-selection, or I can also allow empty value, so I can deselect my option. The other field types I'm not going to explain in this video, but you might be interested in them, are, for example, range, a really good one for tracking progress. Read only just shows the data from a data storage without an option to edit it. It's very useful, especially if you are connecting Infinity Forms to some already existing databases, like your CRM. There is also a color picker, action button, and yeah, you can also upload files directly through the Qlik Sense application if you use Infinity Forms. But that's an advanced option, so I'm not going to explain it here. When it comes to the other options of editable fields, let me just quickly show you that you can define whether the field should be editable or not based on the expression, so based on the data coming from a data model or variables. The same with the background color. You can also define validation types. So if some condition isn't met, there will be a warning for user informing him or her about it, but it will still be possible to hit the save button, or it can be error, so you won't be able to save the data if any error occurs. Auto-calculate is the field that's not editable, but it's automatically calculated based on the other fields, including your manual inputs, so really good for what-if scenarios or totals in a row. Single record view I'll show you right now, and yeah, naturally, you can define totals. Let me save my data and show you this single record view, as well as other additional options that might be very helpful, and yet they are quite easy to activate. You can find them in Appearance section, starting by Main Settings. Here you can enable the batch edit, global one, as well as single column batch edit. And those are the options that you can use to do multiple changes on one click. This is the single column batch edit, and a global one is this one, and it applies all these manual inputs to currently selected rows. And the single record view is here, it's under its own section, and its added value is that sometimes, especially when you have tens of editable fields, it might be better to see them in a focused view instead of scrolling to the right and left, right and left, right. So when you just enable this option, show single record, there is this new button at the beginning of a row. And when I click on it, I see all the data in this focused view. I can go through them row by row. And if I do any change here, it's reflected also in the table view. In the Properties panel, there also are some additional options to design this single form according to what you need. When I hit the Save button, my manual inputs are saved in a data storage according to the configuration. I'll come back to that later. Important to say at this point is that when I do it, My manual updates are available for anyone who opens this application right now. You don't need to reload the application to see the latest manual inputs in Forms object. If I want to use these manual inputs in the rest of the Qlik application, for example, in a line chart or KPI or so, the data storage, where it's stored, is just another data source for the Qlik application. So you as a developer just need to connect it in your Qlik script as any other data source you use. With databases, it's Qlik native. With QEDs, it's Qlik native. And in case you use XML files, default format, default data storage, you might find the documentation really helpful. And as you probably noticed, in the Properties panel in the section About, in all our extensions, there is the link to the documentation, so you don't need to go look for it somewhere else. And under the Developer section, for the on-prem, you find here the section How to load data back to a data model, containing also the script you can copy and paste. And when it comes to the SaaS, again, there's this section explaining how to load the data back to your data model. In case you do that, in case you want to use manual inputs in the rest of the application and enhance the Qlik script, you need to allow the user to reload the application once he or she is done with the changes, right? In that case, you go to the Properties panel, again, Appearance section, and under the subsection Reload Settings, you can enable Recalculate button. As it's explained in a tooltip, it saves the data and reloads the application. And all types of reloads are available, fully respecting user permissions. It can be a current app, but also Qlik task can be triggered or Qlik task can be scheduled. Other options you might find very helpful when using Infinity Forms as end user are following. You can copy and paste the data from an Excel file in blocks. If you want to go through cell by cell, you can use the mouse naturally, but also you can use Tabulator. Now I'm clicking on Enter. It was Tabulator, Enter to confirm my decision. Also, when my data is saved, I can export them to a spreadsheet if that's still needed. One more thing I would change in this Infinity Forms object before I'll share it with end users is that I definitely need to freeze the first columns, right? So again, as always, all the changes are done in the Properties panel, and in the Presentation section, I find all the visual options, and it starts with number of frozen columns. Note, if you have this single record view option enabled, it counts as one column, so 1, 2, 3. Much better. This was the most complex Forms object, so no worries, this video won't take another hour. But let's continue. The next one is Forms Single Record. Forms Single Record is based on the very same logic as Single Record View in Forms General. So giving you the option to see the data focused on one particular ID, person, country, month, whatever. If you already have Forms General defined and you want to use the very same structure, you can convert. Since it's linked to one value of a dimension, as a user, I need to make a selection. In our case, it's linked to a salesperson right now. So this is the single record. There are some design options in the properties panel, for example, whether or not this frame should be used. Also width of the labels, but mostly it's about the design options. Technically, it works the very same as Forms General. That was quick, right? Let me convert it back to the Forms General because it makes more sense in this current application we are building together. And let's focus on the last one, form specific. Form specific is a really unique option in Infinity Forms because it allows all developers, but I mean really programmers, to create their own editable front-end extensions that will be connected to Infinity Forms backend. You can literally develop your own Forms extension, editable object on the screen that will utilize all the security and power of Infinity Forms backend. As an example, we provide you one that's called dimension nodes. Dimension nodes, as its name is saying to us, is linked to a dimension or more dimensions. Again, I need to drag and drop the extension on my sheet and go to the data section to define dimension to which my nodes will be linked to. In this application, I'm interested in a region. So this will be the dimension for me. You can use multiple dimensions. The logic is the very same as in Infinity Forms General. So it will be a composite key. The combination of those dimensions will be used as the key. And when I select one value of the predefined dimension, this is my window to enter unstructured nodes however I want. Note you can use all the symbols as well as emojis, and I highly recommend not to underestimate this section. 3 times, yeah, because it really makes the visual impact and it helps you to distinguish between sections. Section 1 or section 2, some lorem ipsum, you know what I mean. And another note for south. This kind of a manual input is very useful thanks to its simplistic design, especially in already existing applications where you don't have too much space on the sheet you can use. Like, for example, when you analyze data about a monthly closure, yeah, you want to just add some comments there. You don't want to discuss with your colleagues. You just need to enter some comments about some particular number, process, step, or something. It can be linked to month, year, region, as I showed you in this case, also to a person, product, marketing campaign. Yeah, infinite options. It's only up to you. The very last thing I'm going to explain to you in this video is nothing else than what I promised, and that's how to define your own new data storage. When you use Infinity Forms on-prem, there is this Qlik application uploaded to your Qlik during the installation. It's called Forms Admin, and feel free to make a copy of it. Even multiple users can use different copies, it will work well. In this application, on the first sheet, you find the most important information about the license, as well as how it's used. So number of users who are actively using Infinity Forms, as well as what's included in the license key, when it expires, and so on. When it comes to the data storages, note there is this forms data path. It's been specified during the installation, and it defines where the XML files and QED files are stored on the server where Infinity Forms is installed. On the second sheet, there is nothing else than Infinity Forms used for managing Infinity Forms data storages. If I want to define a new data storage, I just click on this Add New button. It creates a new role for me with a predefined type, General XML. Infinity Forms supports all different types of data storages: XML file, QED as a Qlik native data storage, and SQL for any kind of databases. If you want to create a new data storage for this editable table, Infinity Forms General, or Forms Single Record, or Dimension Nodes, this form specific, you choose from General XML, General SQL, or General QED. If you want to create a new data storage for object commenting, for these chatting threads, since it's a different structure of data, you select one of these options. If I want to create a new data storage to a database, as you see, there is this wizard. When I click on it, I can select one of the predefined options, like Snowflake, and fill all necessary inputs, or I can use the option Other. In general, any database that supports JDBC driver should work well with Infinity Forms. So that's why the other option is here. If I select QED or XML, in the very same field, in the third one, I need to define where it should be created on the server. And that's where this forms data path is used, because it starts by forms data path, I highlighted on the previous sheet, following by the file name, like sales data QED, or in my case, XML right now. But you also can use the folders. So if I want to create the architecture based on the folder structure on my server, I can do it directly from this application. I don't need to go there and do it manually. This is how it works. And the second field, this form instance ID, is the technical unique identifier of this data storage. It is exactly what you need to specify in the properties panel to define where the data should be stored. I'll show you. So I'll just copy this. And right now I save my inputs. Now it's saved. It's not yet applied. If I want to apply new data storages, I need to click on the Apply button, and it restarts Forms service. That's why you still have the option to do the changes, save, do the changes, save the data, do the changes, save the data, and once it's all ready, hit the Apply button. And when I come back to my application, in the Properties panel, in the Form Configuration section, I replace this predefined Form General data storage by my new Form Instance ID. So that's this second field here. And it knows the data is going to be stored in sales/salesdata.xml. As you see, I don't see here my previous manual inputs because those were stored in this form general. And right now, it's ready to be used with the new data storage. And when I come back to this Forms admin application, let me just quickly mention that it's also the place where you can manage user management. Again, advanced technical things, so there are other videos for that. But I want to end this one on the fourth sheet, Infinity Forms types. In case you don't want to go all over this video again, this is the place where you can find all these types of Infinity Forms extensions showcased directly on your server. And since it's your application, you can go to edit mode and explore how it's done in the properties panel. It took me a while to record this video, so I really hope you find it pretty useful and that you will be exploring Infinity Forms. Thanks for watching this video and enjoy Infinity Forms.